Hey everyone, John here with SpiritualityU again, and today I just want to talk about spirituality and give kind of like an overview of what spirituality is, or at least my perspective of what spirituality is, because it can be kind of a confusing thing. There's a lot of different views on it out there. Some people think of it to mean more of like a religious thing, other people think it's completely independent of religion. Honestly, it can be either. There are people that are religious that are also highly spiritual. There are people that are spiritual that have nothing to do with, modern religions. It's spirituality is really kind of like a personal path to your own soul and your walk through your life journey. Spirituality is going to look different to everyone. Like, there will be a lot of similarities for a lot of people. There's actually quite a lot of similarities for people on YouTube and just on the internet that tell their story with it. But it doesn't always look identical. Like, you can see a lot of, comparisons, but don't get caught up in thinking that it has to look a certain way. And you don't have to stay on a spiritual path. Maybe you're on one right now, maybe you're not. But if you're feeling curious or called to learn about spirituality, then this video is for you. My goal is not to get you to think like me, but to just offer my perspective so that maybe you can help find your own truth with what resonates with you with spirituality, even if spirituality doesn't resonate with you. But, having a different perspective can help you find your own perspective. And that's what I'm aiming to do, is just give you another perspective to consider. As I said, a lot of people who start a spiritual journey or just find themselves on one have a lot of similar experiences. So before we get too far into this, I'm going to kind of give a list of a lot of the common themes. You may not experience all these, or you may experience literally all of these. So I just want to kind of go over these things because honestly, for me, some of them made me think that I was like losing my mind. And I'm here to assure you, you're not losing your mind if you're experiencing any of these things. Some of them are more normal. Others tend to be a little bit more esoteric, and you'll get what I mean when I say them. It's not uncommon at all to start seeing connections between a lot of things, between you and other people, you and events and whatnot, just seeing almost like this invisible connection between things that seem seemingly unrelated, but you almost have this like psychic vision, so to say, of I see how this led to this. I really couldn't explain how it would have gotten there if I tried, but there's like a connection that doesn't logically make sense, but you just kind of feel that connection. You start seeing yourself in other people, and you start seeing other people in yourself. And it doesn't even have to be other people. It can be seeing yourself in another creature. You can see yourself in this cat back here that's, fat boy here sitting here laying on the bed. You see yourself in a little bit of everything, and you see everything in you. You realize, like I was talking about with the first point, there's a connection between everything. But you start to see that we're all one in a sense. You don't have to lose your sense of individuality, but you see that there is a lot more alike to things that don't seem like they're all that much alike anyway. A lot of people on their spiritual path become a little bit more interested in like a plant-based diet or lifestyle. Not all do. Some people, this sticks with them for the rest of their life. Some people, it's just during their initial spiritual awakening phase. And part of the reason for this is you will become aware of like energy in all things. And honestly, the foods that we eat, that plays a big role in our energy makeup and the vibration that we resonate at inside of ourselves. And when we eat things like meat, those are a little bit more dense, heavy vibrations. And let's be real, when an animal dies, it's going to feel fear. That fear energy will be in that meat. So when you're consuming it, you're consuming a little bit heavier of an energy. When you're trying to like break through into this like spiritual realm, there's a lot of people that, or not a lot of people, but you end up feeling called to lighten your spirit. You can't do that if you're putting a lot of heavy energy inside yourself. So, like for me, before I was really becoming spiritual, I ended up feeling called to make the switch to being vegan. It came about in more of a health conscious way at first, but it quickly transitioned into me having those first few points that I made of, feeling connected to everything and seeing myself in everything. And it just became more, it became easier to see myself in the animals and not feel like consuming them anymore. I've dipped back a little bit into more of like a vegetarian life at this point instead of strictly vegan, but I walk that line quite firmly. Like there will be weeks where I go just like full on vegan because I enjoy the energy that I feel from that. You may not feel this, but you may. Sometimes it leads the other way. Sometimes people that find themselves on like a vegan life find spirituality. Sometimes people find spirituality and then find the vegan or vegetarian thing. You may not find either, but this is something that is kind of common for a lot of people in the community. You may be becoming more aware of energy exchanges with people and animals and everything else. Kind of similar to all the other things, but you just start feeling a vibe on things. It's hard to explain, but you'll know it if you start feeling this symptom of spirituality, basically. You may feel the presence of spirit guides or angels or just any kind of spirit around you. Your intuition may kick into overdrive. You may feel called to make choices that don't seem logical, and you may or may not listen to them. But when you do listen to them, you feel like things work out better. The intuition is a very big thing with spirituality. Like you learn to kind of connect with universal energy basically with your intuition to make a choice or a decision that leads you in a way that feels almost divinely guided. It's again, it's something that's kind of hard to explain because there's no real logical thing. A lot of people want to try to explain it through, well, you just saw something that you weren't aware you saw. Yes, that's true with it, but it's hard to actually pinpoint what you saw or felt. There is just like this gut feeling that you should do something that makes no logical sense to your mind or heart or anything, but it's just like, I feel like this is what I need to do. You develop an understanding or a curiosity for things like empaths, psychics, spirit guides, maybe things like light workers or star seeds. Some of these like esoteric ideas. You may even think that you might be one of these things or multiples of these things, starseed, empath, lightworker kind of thing. It's not uncommon at all for people to start resonating with the idea of these. You may start to feel like you're seeing signs all over the place from the universe or your spirit guides or angels or God or whatever you want to call it. It can come in the way of numbers, music, or just synchronicities, but you feel like there is like signs all around you from something of a higher power. You may go through phases of intense sensitivity where maybe you weren't really much of an emotional person during movies, but now suddenly you find yourself getting choked up at some of the sappy, happy scenes and whatnot. Or you just find violence or things like that to be almost intolerable when it never really bothered you before, or didn't bother you to anywhere near the extent that it does now. This can come and go with people who are experiencing the spiritual awakening. It's just part of becoming more in tune with the universe and the energies around you. You may have feelings that you're going insane because honestly, it can be kind of overwhelming when you start experiencing things like this and feeling so called to make so many radical changes, or that your belief system is suddenly changing before your very eyes. But you're not going cuckoo bananas. You're really not. You're just starting to see things that you were taught all of your life aren't there to be seen. And it can be a bit unnerving because you basically are watching the world you thought you knew crumble in front of you. And it's scary, but it's also exciting because now there's all kinds of opportunity for things that you didn't even think were possible before. You may start seeing synchronicity all over the place where things just don't feel like they can be a coincidence anymore. You might feel called to meditation or curious about like astral projection or things like that. You may not really have an idea of what the afterlife has in store, or if there really is even one, or I shouldn't say that you don't believe there isn't one, but you start to become more curious about an afterlife. And eventually you end up at a spot where you don't really fear death as much, because you know that you're not just this body. You know that you are so much more. You are some kind of eternal being having a human experience, and that resonates very much with you. You may feel called to deal with a lot of your own personal traumas and deal with a lot of like what feels like soul healing, dealing with like those primal wounds that you had growing up, or in a lot of ways, some people don't even deal with their own wounds. There's a belief that people are born into families to heal the wounds that their family members couldn't. You start to become just unconditionally loving. This doesn't mean that you get walked on. It just means that you can have an appreciation for everyone and everything, and you no longer feel like you have to go on the attack either at people or situations to defend yourself. You can do so in a way that isn't destructive. You start to view things as happening for you instead of to you. You realize that things don't just happen randomly. There's always a reason to something, even if you don't like the reason at the time. You have an understanding that it's happening for the best. You may start to feel like you're able to almost telepathically communicate with your spirit guides, or get these like downloads of information from source energy. This is a thing. It's kind of a weird thing because it feels like it sounds like something that makes you seem crazy. And until it happens to you, you're probably going to think anyone talking about it is crazy. I used to think that a lot. It's like people would talk with such certainty about things that it's like, how can you have any kind of certainty about this? Like, you haven't experienced anything like that. The reality is they have experienced it. They just experienced it internally. It wasn't like an external experience, or might have been somewhat of an external experience that led to an like internal epiphany that just lit their soul on fire and made them know something that only their experience could have, that only their experiences could have led them to know. You may start to feel the flow of energy through the universe, which is just this energy of like divine love that is just so peaceful and soothing that words really don't do it justice. Like, it's very hard to explain, but you'll know it when you start to feel it. And you may start to believe in something called the law of attraction. Maybe you don't really know what that is, but you start to feel like your thoughts and your beliefs are almost creating your reality, because things that you just think start to happen. Like, your thoughts manifest into a real life, tangible thing that you can experience. And it starts to happen more frequently than, just luck or coincidence can really explain. Now let's talk real quick about what spirituality doesn't do. It doesn't let you just, start magically shooting fireballs from your hand, or, doing like Harry Potter style magic. I wish it did, but that's not been my experience with it. It does end up letting you do some cool things if you can, do like the astral projection type stuff. There's a lot of stories out there from people that I believe it's real. I've had a little bit of experience with it myself, where I just ended up like for like 20 seconds outside of my body, seeing my body, and I got like hyper excited, which caused me to snap back in. It wasn't like a dream though. I was very conscious and aware. Like, I was aware of everything happening in the room, but I was looking back at myself, at my own body in that room. And again, it's another thing that's kind of hard to explain until you experience it. And then when you do, you understand it at a level that words really fail to explain. But spirituality is not a fix-all for ending all negative experiences that happen to you. You're still going to have bad days, and bad things are still going to happen, or things that you perceive as bad. People are still going to pass away. You're still eventually going to fade out of your body and your life. Like, this is a human experience. It's temporary. It's not a permanent thing. The things that go along with a human experience that, are negative experiences, or what we perceive as negative experiences, are still going to happen. But what spirituality does do is it lets you see beyond the moment. You get to be more conscious about the choices you make and how things interact with you in the universe. It lets you feel like there is something or a reason behind everything, because there is, and you know there is when you end up on this path. It also helps you to get to a point of just understanding your own personal worth and value, and loving yourself in a way that you might have been very uncomfortable with before. Spirituality just kind of gives you this support system that isn't so earthly. You feel a connection to spirits that you don't know on a physical earthly level, but they're there. You know they're there. Which, like religion, when you believe in like Christianity or something, it is a faith-based thing. You know something then too. And spirituality doesn't have to take away from religion. It really doesn't. They can go hand in hand, like I said already, or they can be completely independent. It's your choice on how that goes. It's what resonates with you that matters for you. Like, the way that I believe does not have to influence how you believe with it. For me, I grew up in a Christian household, but I've kind of become more detached from the traditional sense of Christianity. It doesn't mean that I don't believe in Jesus. I do believe he was real, but I don't really subscribe to the idea that you have to follow Jesus to get into heaven kind of thing. I honestly don't even personally believe in hell anymore. There's a lot of different concepts with this. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, look up like the different levels of the astral realm, and that kind of explains more where I'm at with it. It's like there's this lower astral, which is basically the idea of hell, where more negative experiences happen based off of the life you lived, but you don't stay there forever. It's another learning place for your soul. Then you have like the middle astral, which is what most people consider heaven, and it's a very peaceful place. But then you have this like upper astral that is just beyond comprehension for our human minds. Like, it's something that's even greater than heaven, which sounds weird because it's like, people think of heaven as the end all be all for happiness. So it's like, what could be better than that? Again, it's something that we can't really comprehend. But for me, like I said, I do believe Jesus existed. I don't believe he came to be worshipped or to try to get you to worship his Father or anything like that. The whole idea of no one comes to the Father but through me, and the only way to heaven is through Jesus. I believe it's meant more in a consciousness level. If you want to find heaven, if you want to find God, you need to live like Jesus did. And in that, live a life of unconditional love. To be unconditionally loving, you have to kind of go within. You have to start seeing yourself in everything and seeing everything inside of you. You see that connection. And I believe that's kind of what it meant, and why not everyone, but why a lot of people are like, Jesus is coming back real soon. I don't think the second coming of Jesus is a literal flying through the sky with trumpets kind of thing. I think it's a consciousness level that is readily available to anyone. And that conscious level is the ability to just be unconditionally loving, to see everything and everyone through the eyes of love. It doesn't mean that you don't see the negatives that they do and that you approve of everything that happens. But it doesn't mean that you hate anything. You have compassion for everything and everyone. Nothing changes the fact that you love. And I believe that's what Jesus stood for and what he came to try to teach. It's like you hear people all the time be like, heaven is found within, find God within you. And I believe that's what he came to teach. Basically, to summarize, spirituality is this path to self-discovery and discovery of the universe and discovering just this connection to something that is eternal. Like, it's discovering your soul all over again, because we do have kind of this like amnesia effect when we incarnate on Earth, or at least that's what I believe, that we don't remember, like we don't like full on remember what it's like to not be human, but we have like little memories that start to seep in through our lifetime, experiences that kind of give us hints at it. But in order to keep us kind of immersed in this game of life, and you hear people say life's not a game, I honestly think of it more like that at this point. It's not meant to be so serious. But in order to keep us kind of in the human experience and not let us get too far out of it until we're ready to, we have to have those experiences that make us doubt if there's something else, because that lets us have a genuine human experience. for all the gamers out there that play like RPGs like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. Or it doesn't even have to be an RPG. It can be any kind of game. Think of a time that you use like cheat codes in it and you got everything you wanted right away. You get more bored with it quickly. You don't learn so much through it. It's not as rewarding. Life would be the same way if we didn't have this level of immersion where we believe that, there's this very real consequence to everything. And there are real consequences of things we do. But a lot of us live with this fear that when we die, that's it, it's over. Spirituality, at least for me, let me have a little bit more freedom where it's like, well, I don't want to die. I enjoy my life. I genuinely enjoy it anymore. I didn't for a while. I went down that dark path for a bit, but this whole belief system kind of helped me pull out of that as well. But it helped me be not so afraid of living life. Somewhere along the line I heard something about we do everything we can to avoid living life so we can arrive safely at death. I forget who it was. It might have been Teal Swan. I'm not sure who it was that I heard say that, but it kind of stuck out to me. It's like we do go through everything we can sometimes, a lot of people do, to protect themselves so that they can die safely, which there's nothing wrong with that if that's really what you're wanting. But how many times do we talk ourselves out of living and really taking a risk? And I'm not talking about like a stupid risk, like jumping in a den with a lion to prove that God's there and going to protect you. But something as simple as like getting on a roller coaster or going on a vacation, or, when we get stuck in that like anxiety mindset and think the worst is going to happen, it helps get you out of that a little bit when you realize that, or at least have a belief that life, you don't end when the body ends. You believe that you continue on. And that's what spirituality helped me do as well. It helped me really get to a point where I could not be so worried about dying and ending things. It didn't make me want to end things. It made me actually want to continue with life and experience it for all that it could be. But it helped me to not be so neurotic, I guess, with worrying of, well, what happens if I do this and it leads to death? If I'm happy up until the moment I die, then I'm happy up until the moment I die. Can't really think of a better way to go, Like, why be bored and regret missing out on all kinds of things just so I can, reach the inevitable death that is going to happen to all of us? Anywho, I'm going to start wrapping this up. I hope you guys got a little something out of this video, and maybe it cleared up an idea of what spirituality is in a sense. It's honestly one of the hardest things to put into words for me. I'm good with like kind of trying to explain my experiences with it, but trying to really like summarize it, it's a little difficult. But in general, I think it's just spirituality is writing your life story and learning yourself in your place in the universe, while at the same time remembering your connection to the stars, your connection to spirits, and just realizing that there is so much more out there that we know absolutely nothing about. So anyway, if you guys did get something from this video and like my content, please leave me a like and subscribe. It helps me also get this information out to other people so I can maybe help them as well. So anyway, love y'all. Catch you guys.